Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the NTFA Footy Show. And it is great to be back after having to have last week off. Plenty to get through tonight, as well as plenty of guests on the show and some great football action coming up this weekend with women's rep football. We'll get to that shortly as well. But as we do every week, it's time to announce our photo of the week. With thanks to Crafty Cuts, they'll take home a 4-pack. And the winner this week, well, it's Brad Moylan from the Bridgenorth Football Club who captured this terrific photo of the Bridgenorth, the undefeated Bridgenorth women's team coming off the beautiful Scottsdale football ground oval there. Now, been reliably informed by the Bridgenorth coach in Bobby Beams that Brad is just 16 years of age. So we will work out what we'll do with the Crafty Cuts, Brad. That might be a very good weekend for your parents. Maybe if they want to have the 4-pack, that will be theirs. Anyway, that is all you got to do. Send in your favourite footy photo. We'd love to see it, and you might win that pack next week as well. All right, before we go to the break, there's obviously no men's football this weekend because it is a long weekend, and we've got rep footy happening for the women. But let's have a look at the state of play and check out the ladders. Firstly, let's look at the men's Premier Division ladder as it stands heading into the break. And as you can see, sitting there on top of the ladder, we've got Hillwood. A thrilling victory for them. Well, it wasn't a victory in the end. It was a draw against Longford. That's how close it was. So Hillwood on top of the table there. Still got that game in hand. Rochalee have obviously now climbed up to second place and are sitting 6 points clear of last year's reigning premiers, of course, Longford. And then South Launceston and Bracknell rounding up the top 5. Then we've got Bridgenorth and Deloraine. They are a win back and a fair bit of percentage out of the 5. Scottsdale on 4 and Georgetown are sitting there on that table as well. So let's have a look now at the MVP for the men's Premier Division as well. And there it is after round 8, the leaderboard. And Jordan Cousins of Rochalee is sitting on top of the table now on 25 votes. He picked up 5 in their victory over Deloraine last weekend. Josh Woolley of Bracknell on 20 and Isaac Thompson from the Hillwood Football Club. He picked up 5 votes as well. He's moved into 3rd place. Casey Brown of Longford and Lockie Dornoff of Deloraine sitting there 5th on 12 votes. Turn our attention now to men's Division 1 and we'll take a look at the ladder as it stands as well, heading into the long weekend and the break. And Old Scotch on top of the table there on 32 points. They had a massive win on the weekend over Meander Valley. St Pat's sitting there on 28. They've moved along very nicely, the reigning premiers. So we can see the grand finalists from last year sitting in 2nd and 1st place respectively. Perth have dropped a couple in a row. St Pat's had a big win over Perth last weekend. So after being undefeated over the first 6 weeks, Perth dropped down to 3rd. 6 wins, 2 losses from their 8 games. Lilydale and Old Launcestonians have made their way into the top 5. And that is the table as it stands right now. And we look at the Bogues MVP for men's Division 1. And there is the leaderboard at the end of round 8. And Old Scotch's Josh McKenzie is out in front by 6 votes. And he is doing it very nicely from William Haley of Perth and also Jacob Williams of Perth, rounding out the top 3 with Callum Harrison of St Pat's and Old Scotch's Fletcher Seymour. Of course, great TSL footballer from Launceston. He's there on 15 votes. So that's how it stands. Our men have got the weekend off. We'll have a quick break. When we come back, we're going to meet our first guest. Evandale Football Club will be our club in focus with thanks to Harrison Agents.
Durable, reliable, heavy duty. Get the power you need from the people who know machinery. For sales, parts, servicing and expert advice, call DLM Machinery today or visit dlmmachinery.com.au.
And welcome back to the NTFA Footy Show. Great to have your company. And now it is time for our club in focus. And this week it is the Evandale Football Club with thanks to Harrison Agents. And well, they celebrated long and hard, I believe, last Saturday night, the 30th anniversary of their double. They won the Senior Division and also the reserves of the then Esk Deloraine Association back in 1993. and one of the stars of the Evandale Football Club. And he's got a very good story as well, representing the NTFA when they took on Collingwood. Is also an NTFA board member now, Jeff Skeggs. Jeffrey, nice to see you, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks, Rick. How are you?
Going very well. You're not still wearing the gear from your celebrations last Saturday night, eh? I hope you have changed since then.
I have changed since last Saturday night, yeah.
Good night.
Really good afternoon out at Evandale, and a lot of the old players turned up, and it was really good to see.
Fantastic. We'll show our viewers a few photos of it as well. But there's a big story to this club, and we'll get on to the age of them. And there we see a few laughs had, no doubt. Obviously, Skeggsy, I see a lot of people are laughing there. It looks like you might have just told a joke, did you?
I had a few good jokes.
Did you?
And a good few things was come out over the years. It was really good.
Fantastic.
It's nice to see some of the older players turn up, and we had a good laugh. And hopefully, going forward, we'll have some more reunions every year or something like that for the old players. We're going to have a bit of a joke and a bit of fun. Yeah.
Good to see. NTFA President Scott Rigby there as well, of course, who was, I think, part of the reserves that year.
Yeah, he was part of the reserves grand final, and then he was one our senior runner for us. So he done two runs on that day.
It's a great history. It's one of the oldest football clubs in Tasmania. We'll get on to a big anniversary that was celebrated last year. But talk us through that 1993 grand final day, because it was a big day for the club, obviously winning not just the seniors but the reserves as well. But what was it like back then? I mean, for people of this generation who don't know the Eskdale Arena Association, what was football like back in that day compared to today?
Back in them days, we had close to both sides. We probably had about 60 players on the field every week, and everybody got on together pretty well. Going through that year, we was undefeated because we didn't lose many players through injuries that year. That sort of made the seniors and the reserves pretty stable for the year. It gives us a good shot at playing in the finals. And when you look at the association, they had so many clubs there: St Mary's, Fingal, Campbelltown, Hagley, Westbury, and a few of these clubs are not around now, but Evandale still sticks by what we got now at Evandale. They've got a good community behind them, and they've got some good workers out there. That's what makes them pretty good club to go to. It's not that far out of town now. It's only 10 to 15 minutes, so it's good.
And that 93 grand final, I know there was a pretty big blue at half time. We used to see some big blues back in the day, but tell us about that, because I think it was pretty close to an all-in brawl.
Yeah, that was just a bit of a scuffle.
Was it?
Scuffle, we call it, back in our days. A bit of a scuffle at half time. And, when two teams are going head-to-head, was pretty. We had a pretty good lead at half time, so they tried to rough us up a bit. So we had some players on our side that, we just stood up for each other. So that's the good thing about Evandale. And in the 90s, we had the players that we stood up for each other, and we didn't let people like that push us over.
Fair enough. And what about crowds back then compared to, say, today? Like the grand final, was it Longford, was it?
It's at Longford. Longford
what was it like back then?
Probably close to 5,000 people.
Gee, really?
Back in them days. So the whole Longford football ground was chock-a-block full of cars and people. So, they had a good following in Evandale, and Hagley had a good following too. But over the year, most ground we used to go, all the grounds used to have pretty good crowds going there. Yeah.
I'm going to show the ladder. You guys finished on top of the ladder, but you touched on a few of the clubs as well, and we'll see the graphic coming up here. We have a look at that. You see, you finished on top, but I want to reel a few clubs off, and you've mentioned some of them already: St Mary's, Hagley, Mole Creek, Fingal, Cressy, Westbury, Campbelltown. Now, over 50% of those clubs aren't there anymore, which is really sad for the townships and those communities. What makes Evandale so special? Why do you think they've been able to survive through some pretty tough times over 130 years?
Well, they had some good, still have. They got had some good workers out there over the years, like the Rigbys, Mr. and Mrs. Rigby, are now deceased and passed away. But over the years, they had now some of the players who played back in the 90s and 2000, they're now on the committee out there, and they're just like the little town is starting to thrive again with what's going on around Tasmania. So this year I went out a couple of times, and this year I went out last week, and They got a lot of young kids out there from the town and around the area of Launceston. So going forward, they should be pretty good in the next few years.
And I've told also that they're the first club in Australia to begin juniors with girls as well, which is really significant as we see they actually started a junior program before junior boys, and obviously one of the oldest football clubs going around in Tasmania, which is terrific. Now, you talked about obviously last Saturday, but I believe there was a speech, I don't know if you were involved, but before the senior game last Saturday, a lot of people were very impressed with the speech to the playing group of today. Were you a part of that one last weekend?
Yeah, I was. Matter of fact, we all the old players went into the change room before the game, about 5 minutes before the game, and I got up and spoke about how the club embraces young people, how they look after us, and if you want to go forward with your football, this club out here at Evandale looks after you. So if you want to stick around for 2 or 3 years, you'll get a premiership if they do the right thing and look after these young kids. So they've got a good culture out there. The kids like going out there. It's not that far from town. And if we keep that sort of culture out there, they should go further.
And look, they're a club that have been very competitive this year. They started the year very well and obviously probably not favoured to finish near the top end, but pretty competitive last week against a very good team in Lilydale as well. So they obviously listened to you nicely, Skeggsy, and got out there and gave it a crack, and that's all you can ask for.
That's all you ask for every week. If these young ones learn through the year, stick with the good group they got, and add a couple more players for next year. They will go a bit further. And if they listen, and they should be good. And they played well last week to 3/4 time. Yeah. There's only about 5 points out at 3/4 time, and then they just run out of legs a bit. Yeah.
Just finally, your association with the club. What drew you to Evandale? How did you get involved there?
Back in the 92, I got asked to go out to Evandale. The reason I went out to Evandale is my late brother played out there. I haven't played football with him when I was at the East or South like that. I was usually playing up to seniors, and he's down below here. So the last couple of years, I wanted to have a few years before I pulled the pin. So I got asked to go out, and then halfway through late 92, I got asked if I would like to have a go at coaching out there, and I accepted that. But I did have some good people on the bench helping me out. So that's the reason I went out to Evandale, and I stayed out there for about 4 or 5 years, and then pulled the pin and retired.
Must have been pretty special, obviously, as you mentioned, with your late brother Phil, who of course tragically passed away in that horrific Sydney Hobart yacht race in 1998. But that must have been very special for you and the family to be there together with him.
Yeah, it was. It was really good. I had never played with him football in a team, so I had the opportunity to do this, and that's why I accepted the coaching role. And we had some good players around us, and that's why I think we had a good neutral, good players. That's why we played real good football in '93. Going through undefeated wasn't. I didn't think we was going to do that, but each week we got up pretty good and won all our good games. So it was good.
Well, it's a good note to finish on, and I think what we'll finish with is the photo from last year. Of course, now the club into its 131st year, but some incredible faces there. Skeggsy didn't make that list, unfortunately, did you? Not on that photo. I didn't invite you that day.
They're a bit older than me at the moment.
But it is just an attribute to the club of how the connection is still there with so many that they can attract them back to the club, and many of them, of course, go out there every week. I know Kevin Lewis there. I think he rocks up to every game as well. But it's a special club. And Skeggsy, good to have you on the show, mate. Thanks for sharing your memories, and nice to celebrate the 30th anniversary of what was a famous day for the Evandale Football Club.
Thanks, Rick.
Jeffrey Skeggs joining us here on the NTFA Footy Show. Time for a quick break. We'll be back in a moment.
Durable, reliable, heavy duty. Get the power you need from the people who know machinery. For sales, parts, servicing and expert advice, call DLM Machinery today or visit dlmmachinery.com.au.
Thanks to Cleanaway, it is time for Women's Football in Focus, and a great pleasure to introduce a new co-host to the show, well known to many, Abby Green. Hello.
Hello, Rick. Thanks for
Welcome.
having me.
Lovely to have you with us, and great to have you as part of the team. And this will be the beginning of a big media career, no doubt, for yourself. This will just be the beginning.
Absolutely. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. As you know, I love women's football.
Yep.
I love the show. So, yeah, thanks for having me.
No, great to have you with us, and we'll get stuck straight into it because there's a lot to talk about. We've got rep footy coming up this weekend, but we will get on to the Premier Division for the women's first of all. I know that you just winced a little bit then. We'll get to that very shortly about last weekend, but there is the NTFA Premier Division ladder, and as we can see, Abby, Bridgenorth now, well, they're in amazing form, aren't they? They're undefeated still, 3 games clear on top of the table from Old Scotch, and you've seen them close or firsthand, but they're a powerful unit this year.
Absolutely. Look, I cannot see anyone taking over top spot for the remainder of the season. We go into a 2-week break, and they're 3 clear of anyone else, so they're performing strong, which is really good to see.
Old Scotch up to second. They had a good win over South Launceston. They've overtaken you guys there into second spot on the ladder. And I know a great rivalry that you two have, but they're going along very well. South Launceston, of course, went down to Scotch, but remain in 4th position. But I want to get on to Launceston.
Yes.
They're hot on their heels. They obviously are the reigning premiers, but a very slow start to the season, but they got over you guys on the weekend as well. Tell us about them, because they seem to be hitting some form now with a couple of wins in recent weeks.
Absolutely. So they led from the first bounce all the way to the final quarter. It was really good to see them building momentum. They've obviously had a few ins and outs and a tough start to the season, but now that they've really gelled and they've found their momentum, they got the win on the board, and they were pretty electric.
How are things in the rooms after the game? Did you have to flip your lid a little bit, Abby, or were you pretty circumspect?
Yeah, look, I'll try not to get into it too much, but there may have been a few tears. But that's women's football for you, and back to the drawing board for us. But the break's going to help.
It will. I want to mention Scottsdale as well. They're 1 game out of the 4th, but they showed some really good signs last week. They were very competitive against Bridgenorth, and obviously with the ladder, they're certainly not out of calculations at this stage either. But good to see the girls up the northeast put a pretty good game together.
Absolutely. I believe they were only down by 4 points in their 3rd quarter against Bridgenorth, which is obviously top of the table. So there's some momentum building there too. So it will be interesting to see how they follow through for the second half of the season.
Indeed. Let's turn our attention to Division 1 now, and Meander Valley are still on top of the ladder. They did have the bye last weekend, but Hillwood sitting second on percentage now from Deloraine because of the huge win they had over Longford, and Deloraine also had a pretty comfortable win over the Georgetown last weekend as well. And Evandale up to 4th on the table. So pretty tight there, because you can see Georgetown, of course, in 5th out of the 4 on percentage as well. But pretty tight in Women's Division 1. But Meander Valley, of course, runners up last year. Good to see them certainly giving a good account to the start of the year as well. And Hillwood, who came from the Premier Division and got relegated, trying their hardest to remain in calculation as well.
Yeah, it's really good to see Hillwood up there, solid contesters on the ladder. Meander, obviously 5 wins, no losses. That's a solid start. And we hear about Longford getting their first win on the weekend. Do you want to have a chat about it?
Yeah, well, let's have a chat about it in a moment. Let's play the song, because congratulations to the Longford Football Club. This was their first ever win in the NTFA women's competition since they joined. So let's hear to them, because they were in full voice. Pretty excited in those rooms, Abby.
Isn't that brilliant?
It is, isn't it?
Absolutely incredible. Long time coming, but
Yeah.
at least they stuck with it, and it's good to see them all. They all know the words.
And it's one of those songs that you just know, don't you? It's
Yep,
it's a famous
absolutely.
song. But congratulations to the Longford Footy Club. They're into their third season, and that was their first win when they beat East Coast. So absolutely fantastic.
Brilliant.
Let's have a look at some of the individual performers in the NTFA and the MVPs now, the Bogues MVP, because, there's some interesting votes going on here, and particularly with the Premier Division as well.
Wowee.
Have a look at Emily McKinnell there, Abby.
Just a casual 20 points clear of everyone. That is fantastic. I know she's put in a really remarkable pre-season, so it's really good to see her being rewarded for her efforts this year.
Alana Boyack, of course, as well from Old Scott. She's into second position there on 15 votes, and Jenna
Absolutely.
Griffiths in third. Of course, some of these players will be featuring
Oh, yes.
on the weekend as well, but Emily picking up 6 votes in that game up at Scottsdale as well. Now, you obviously don't give yourself votes, do you, I suppose, as the coach, given it's the
Nobody
the
needs to
coaching
know
votes?
that.
No,
Let's
but
just assume we do.
yeah, we should, because but it's going to be very hard to catch Emily already.
Yeah.
We're not even at the halfway stage of the season, so
No,
she's
absolutely.
absolutely flying. Let us
Brilliant.
have a look at Division 1 now with the MVP for Bogues, and there, of course, our Devils coach, Jodie Clifford.
Jodie Clifford, fantastic.
And just a great ambassador for football, isn't she? She's
Absolutely.
doing an amazing job with the girls. I mean, do you look up to people like Jodie as well? I mean, I know obviously you've come from an AFLW background, but you see someone like Jodie who's plied a trade here, and now she's doing great things as a coach, but still doing very well on the footy field.
Absolutely. It's an inspiration to Lowell, especially for her age. Not to say that she's old or anything, but she's in her mid-30s, she's coaching, she's working full-time, and she's still performing on the football field. So what an inspiration.
She's doing well. She's 3 votes clear there of Georgia Bailey from Evandale and Jodie Wicks of Longford. Great to see her. Longford play there in third position. We've got a few there on 9 votes as well. So
Absolutely.
with Kia Rogers. And I guess being involved as we segue into the rep footy as well, seeing some of these girls from the other clubs, it must be a great opportunity to see the improvement. What have you noticed over the last couple of years since you've been back in Tasmania with women's football here?
Oh, you can, you just notice the passion on the field. The skill execution has just gone to another level. Girls are really protecting themselves around the ball, and we're putting more numbers on the scoreboard, and that's what it really comes down to, getting more points on the scoreboard. Overall, that's where the game's won.
This weekend, of course, we have got the rep series coming up. We'll have a look at the teams of 25, and I know that unfortunately some will be missing out as emergencies as well. But we've got the matches happening on Monday. Of course, it is a long weekend, the 12th of June, down at North Hobart Oval. You played down there much?
Gosh, it was a few years ago with North Melbourne, but I know it's very wide and quite windy, so it'd be interesting to see.
It will be. Senior women's there on the left, under 20s on the right. Looks a pretty strong group that's been assembled by Coach Ash Smith and, of course, Mark Pryor coaching the under 20 girls. Thoughts on the teams?
Some really good inclusions. I'm looking forward to seeing Jennifer Guy on the return. Obviously, she had an ACL injury and has just started back with the VFL. We've also got some solid contenders in the midfield. Bridgenorth,
Yep.
Old Scotch, Old Els, Scottsdale. Yeah, it's going to be a good game. It'll be interesting to see how we all mix together.
Great mix of clubs
Absolutely.
also that have got players in the squad, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
Now, for those who want to go, 11 o'clock on Monday morning, it's the under 20s and NTFA taking on the SFL, and then the seniors. You guys will be running out, Abby, at 1 p.m. on Monday, as I said, down at North Hobart Oval, and then next Saturday you'll be back in action at your home ground, Invermay Park. That'll be
Invermay
exciting.
Park. I love that ground.
And playing in between, of course, the reserves and the seniors of the NTFA match that day, of course, Old Launcestonians home ground. So 12:45 against the NWFL. If you can't get to the action, all the games are being live streamed on the AFL Tasmania YouTube channel as well. So, but hopefully we get a few people going down the highway on Monday to watch you guys in action.
Yes, we can only hope, but I'm sure there'll be a solid crowd there.
Had the spies out watching the bit of the south, or a bit hard to get a read?
No, it wasn't until last night that I just checked out their list. I noticed a few former TSL players.
Yep.
But we'll see how they go.
Absolutely. One more
Absolutely.
training session to go. Let's
Yep.
hope everyone stays fit.
Mhm.
Great to have you on, Abby. Welcome to the team, and
Thanks, Rick.
we'll look forward to doing it next week.
My pleasure. Cannot wait.
Excellent. Abby Green joining us as she will every week here on the NTFA Footy Show. Quick break, back shortly.
Durable, reliable, heavy duty. Get the power you need from the people who know machinery. For sales, parts, servicing and expert advice, call DLM Machinery today or visit dlmmachinery.com.au.
Welcome back to the NTFA Footy Show. Well, our next guest tonight has just been part of a big anniversary, 10 years City Park Radio have been calling live sport here in northern Tasmania, and the voice and the host behind it is David Moore, who joins us now. So this is what he looks like, folks, because you normally just hear his voice. But Dave, welcome. Congratulations. Big milestone. Did you think you'd get to 10 years when you started out?
Oh, I didn't think we'd get to 10 games, Rick, when we started out. So, no, 10 years, it's been fantastic. It's gone quickly in some ways, but yeah, we've covered a lot of sport, particularly the footy over that time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you touched on sport, but you have always had a passion for sport. Where did the passion to actually get a radio show going and a live broadcast, how did that come about?
Well, I was already doing music programs on City Park Radio locally. And we just got chatting one day about the fact that there wasn't local footy on the radio in northern Tasmania anymore. And it left a bit of a vacuum. And we thought, yeah, let's give it a go. We've got some gear there and some willing people. So we'll give it a shot. And then we had our first broadcast June the 1st, 2013. So we've just had that 10th anniversary. Launceston versus Burnie at Windsor Park. So, yeah, onward and upward from there, I hope.
Indeed. We've got a few photos to some memories over the years of some of the members of your team that you've still got. Of course, Matty McGee, who's, well, it's like Bill and Ben, really, isn't it, you two? I mean, you've just been together for so long and great person to work with, but you've got an amazing team.
Yeah, we've got a good team, and we try and strike a balance between a little bit of fun, a little bit of banter, but also seriously covering the footy and giving the folks at home some good analysis. Obviously, we're linked up with the stream, so some people can see the game, but we're always conscious that people on the radio, listening at home or in the garden or in their car, really want us to paint a picture of what's going on. So, yeah, we try our best to bring it to the listeners in Northern Tassie.
It's important to point out as well, I think, David, you're all volunteers. It's a community radio station. You don't do it for money. So it's a credit to all of you. You're giving up time and giving back to the community as well. But it's not just footy, as you mentioned, predominantly, but NBL 1 basketball. I think you've even done stuff at school and poetry and
all sorts of things. So we try our hands at all sorts of sports and all sorts of local activities. But yeah, pretty much now it's the basketball, the NBL 1 South and the TSL footy. But we're open if anybody out there wants our services for other sport. We're always open to any offers. So yeah, please get in touch.
Had you done any commentary of sport before you got stuck into this?
No, but as a kid, I listened to a lot of radio, with the footy, and especially 3LO in Melbourne and the local people here, such as Barry Triffett, who was on our very first broadcast, the great Barry Triffett. So once you listen to a lot of radio commentary for the footy, you sort of pick up things. So a bit homespun, but it was great in those first few years. We did have the services of, for example, David Lithgow in that first one, and Barry Triffett, Michael Maney helped out, yourself, Rick, just to push us along the way. So, yeah, but we haven't had any formal training as such. We've sort of learnt on the job, if you like.
Plans for the future, much of the same, or big plans still to come with City Park Radio as the sporting landscape changes?
Yeah, well, obviously the move to regional football, perhaps in 2025, or maybe sooner, who knows. We're keen to be part of that. As far as the NTFA is concerned, we're pleased to announce that we're going to broadcast a game later in the year at Youngtown between South Launceston and Bracknell. So really looking forward to that one. Yeah, we're keen to work in partnership with the NTFA down the track. And also if a VFL team comes along, that's one opportunity we've talked about at the station that we'd really like to be involved with. Sure.
Fantastic. Now, just finally, last month you were, I probably don't like to talk about yourself too much, but you were one of 2 recipients during National Volunteer Week to receive an AFL Merit Award for your work in sports broadcasting. So I know on behalf of many people, congratulations on that, because it was very well deserved with what you've done for the community and led the team through. But that must have been a big thrill for you.
Yeah, it was. But I saw it as the team winning the award to me. You mentioned Matthew McGee there before. He's been with me pretty much since the start and our second broadcast. So he's been a real rock along the way. Chris Ball, who's our producer. He used to work with the ABC, as you know, Chris. Was a legend there, and he's been fantastic for us as producer back in the studio. So there's been a lot of people along the journey that have come and gone. But I like to think that we've provided a service to the northern community, especially those people that love their footy.
Absolutely, indeed you have. And to you, Macca, and everyone on the team, and of course Chris Ball, who does everything back from the studio
Absolutely.
every single time. Well done, and we obviously look forward to seeing you a bit later in the year as well with the NTFA, and hopefully if it works out, grand final days as well. It'll be fantastic.
Absolutely.
And we might just get your comment finally, Dave, on the crew. There's some of the team there of City Park Radio. Give us your thoughts on this great team.
Great team. Our expert commentator, Michael Max Walker. Matthew McGee, of course, who's been there, as I said, for a long time with me since we started the broadcast. Dave Gruber, a crucial member of the team, the stats man. He's always giving us all the crucial team stats. And we've got our boundary riders. You can see Chris Sayer there, and also Tony Webb and Rob Soward also helps out as well. So they're pretty important people giving us all the news from the boundary line.
Great to have you with us, Dave. We appreciate your time. Congratulations once again to you and the team, and good to have you on the show.
Thanks, Rick. Cheers.
That is Dave Moore joining us from City Park Radio. And now we're just going to finish off with a bit of news on footy from right around Tasmania, thanks to Crafty Cuts. And firstly, big event coming up a little bit later on this year, the Tasmanian State of Origin team reunion. Now, this is absolutely massive. Of course, the famous team that defeated Victoria back in 1990, 33 years later, they're coming together on Friday, the 6th of October, down at the Glenorchy Footy Club. $100 plus a booking fee. That's all it is, to hear from some great speakers. It includes a buffet meal, 2-hour drink package, and the Relive the Rivalry games actually the next day at North Hobart Oval as well. So it'll be a great weekend. Guest speakers will include Tasmanian coach Robert Shaw, and also Captain Darren Pritchard will be there, and they'll be joined by Victorian coach David Parkin and their skipper on that day, Gary Ayres. It's going to be a great night. So you can check out the Relive the Rivalry Facebook page. There is also a link there to the Try booking site to purchase your tickets. Only 200 are available. Now, a bit more closer to home, the Old Launcestonians Football Club. They've got a past Players Day coming up at Invermay Park next weekend, Saturday the 17th of June. Of course, a bye this weekend for the rep footy. $50 includes food and drinks. Head to the OL's Facebook page. It'll be a big Division 1 game too that day as OL's take on the reigning premiers in St Pat's. And in between that, it is going to be the rep game between the NTFA and the NWFL at Invermay Park as well, between the reserves and the seniors there in the men. So that should be a beauty. Now, speaking of rep footy, coming up this Friday night, actually, we've got a big game at the Ulverston Recreation Ground. The NWFA are taking on the Darwin Association. There are all the details there. Under 23s at 6:15 p.m, and that'll be followed by the seniors at 8 o'clock, and that is this Friday night. NWFA and Darwin Association for your Northwest Footy Fix coming up. And just finally, a couple of names to mention here to keep an eye out on, because they are having a great year. This young man on your screen now, Riley Sanders, he is, of course, formerly with the North Launceston Football Club, played for the Allies in the Australian Under-18 Championships against South Australia earlier this week. 36 disposals. You can see on your screen there. Kicked a couple of goals as well. He is a very, very good draft prospect. Made his TSL debut for North Launceston, I think at the age of 15. He is a very promising young footballer. Keep your eyes out for Riley, doing great things. And also Colby McKercher, who had 27 disposals in that game against South Australia, laid 6 tackles as well. A couple of other Tasmanians, Thomas Beaumont and James Leake, also very strong games for them. Great prospects, some great young prospects for Tasmanian football, and who knows, maybe for our own AFL team in a few years' time as well. Matches to come for the Allies. They take on Western Australia on Sunday, and then they've got games coming up against Vic Metro and Vic Country in early July. So that is what is coming up. So it gives you a bit of a wrap on what's happening in football around Tasmania with thanks to Crafty Cuts. That is the show for this week. It was great to be back. Have a great footy weekend. Don't forget to send in your favourite photos. It is all thanks to DLM Machinery. We'll catch you next week.